atomic gigantification was a sweeping Japan nation when along came a dude with an ultra attitude, a common rider who's the greatest kicker of Japan. And of all, man, life's too short now, baby, to not talk big now, baby.
Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new episode of Kaiju Conversation. Except this time we have a bonus episode. So Rex could not join us unfortunately due to, a little thing called time zones, but I got to interview two lovely individuals doing their dreams. I got to interview Matthew Blair and Frankie B Washington on their upcoming issue 2 of their comic book, Kaijus vs. Cowboys. So I hope you guys enjoy this interview. It was a lot of fun to talk with them. And I hope that by the time this comes out, they have already successfully continued their Kickstarter and only get more luckier and more successful with their work. Because let me tell you something, they have worked extremely hard and have created some remarkable stuff. So without further ado, I'm going to let my past self take it away.
Welcome, everybody, back to a brand new bonus episode of Kaiju Conversation. I'm your host, Elisha. Rex cannot join me right now as he is currently sleeping. Gotta love time zones. But today, I got a very exciting bonus episode. So today, I have two guests with me to talk about their upcoming issue of their comic book they're creating. So this is where I'm going to go ahead and open the floor for Matt and Frankie to introduce themselves and let you guys know who are listening, who they are, and what they do. So we're going to open up the floor here. Whoever wants to go first, go for it. I'll just say this. They have a lot to talk about. We've been sitting here for 30 minutes.
I plan on dragging some ears.
So
and he will too.
Give me those
let's
ears.
just go for it. Let's go for it.
All right. You want to go first, Frankie, or should
Sure, why not? Hey, what's going on,
right.
everybody? I'm Frankie B. I'm the one half of the Kaijus and Cowboy team. I am the artist and co-creator of Kaijus and Cowboys. And I love drawing robots and I love illustrating kaijus. And I love the Bronze Age comics. There you go.
All right. Hey, everyone. My name's Matthew Blair. You can just call me Matt. I'm relatively new to the comic book world and the comic book scene, but I've always loved epic stories, myths, legends,
Nice.
history, all that sort of stuff. And I'm the writer and co-creator of Kaijus and Cowboys. I've been working with Frankie on other stuff for about 6 years.
Ooh, yeah, we might be kicking into the 7th year mark, I think.
Yeah, a long time. And
yeah, I know. It's like a marriage.
Oh.
Oh.
Frankie's already married, so sorry, guys.
I know.
But yeah, I've been working with Frankie, and Frankie is the kind of guy that inspires you to think and strive towards better things.
Yes.
And so, we were talking one day about, something we had done. And then, out of the blue, I suddenly thought, hey, Frankie, you like kaiju a lot.
Yep.
Why don't we write a kaiju story? And, what if we had, a robot who was dressed in a cowboy outfit and was wandering the wastelands wearing a cowboy hat and a duster. And Frankie got back to me and said, I absolutely love that. And out of that came everything. Literally, that was it.
Yeah.
So those were the only 2 design notes I ever gave. And everything after that is Frankie. That's me. Relative newcomer to comics, but happy to be here and, just love creating and love writing. So
before we dive in, because I'm sure there's a lot we can dive in on this comic, I'm just curious. What is your guys' favorite comics?
Oof. All right. Well, I'll say for me, right off the bat, the one that did it for me was Shogun Warriors. The Shogun Warriors and Godzilla by Marvel Comics. And it was done by the team of Doug Munich. I hope I'm saying his last name right. Doug Munich, and Herb Trimpe, who I called my dad. And God rest his soul. He passed away, but I did get a chance to meet him, let him know how that comic inspired me. Actually, this is a picture that I have with him at one of the final shows. I don't know if you can see it, but I was able to do a piece of art for him and stuff. But the work that they did on the Shogun Warriors was so, I don't know, it was just so powerful for me because my very first book was a Spider-Man, but I always loved giant monsters, King Kong, and even like the American kaijus or the giant monsters of the 50s and stuff. But something about the Japanese kaijus and the fact of how fantastical they were and their abilities and things like that really fascinated me. And then also the idea of giant robots, something about you're a regular human being, but then somehow you could climb into this giant automaton, and then this automaton becomes almost like an extension of yourself, and then you can battle against the evil genius or alien forces from space or whatever against their giant creatures and whatever. That stuff really fascinated me. And so when I saw the Shogun Warriors in Godzilla comics, I just was like, wow, Marvel Comics is doing this. And maybe there's a place. Maybe if I worked hard enough and whatever, perfected my skills and whatever, then maybe one day I could work at Marvel and do something as cool as what I was seeing there. So those would be the two comic books that really influenced me.
So my story is a little bit different. Like when I was growing up as a kid, I'm not going to say I was sheltered, but we didn't have cable television. And I was raised by two parents who were big believers in the power of books, not comics, books. And so, I'm not going to say I was elitist, but I was, I did grow up to be a little bit of a snob. But when I was in late middle school, early high school, I remember we were on a field trip and we were staying overnight at a hotel, and I turned on the television and I saw an episode of Justice League Unlimited.
Oh wow!
So that should give you a time frame of what when this is. Yeah, and I saw that and I was like, oh, this is good. I like this because I grew up on Greek mythology, Roman history, that sort of thing.
Yep.
And I saw that and I was like, okay, so comic books, cartoons, and superheroes can be done in a mature and respectful way, and this really doesn't look like it really should be for kids, but good children's entertainment is just as much for adults as it is for kids, as I have now learned.
So I'm just curious, Matt. So you never saw the Batman show? You never saw the Batman animated or Superman?
Oh, I mean that came later. That came later. I mean, I also had an aunt who, the same aunt that got me hooked on Greek mythology, also gave me a tome of old Batman stories. So
okay.
I liked those.
Okay, cool.
But most people, grow up reading comics and then sort of fall off and then maybe rediscover it. I was the exact opposite. As I grew up, I started discovering comics, which leads me to what my favorite comics are. A lot of Vertigo. I discovered Vertigo.
Oh yeah. That makes sense.
I was oh, this is great. So Sandman, Alan Moore's Swamp Thing.
Black Orchid? Black Orchid?
Little before my time.
I think I have a few of them. I think I have a few Black Orchids.
But and then my favorite era of comics is early 2010s Image and late era Vertigo. So Brian Wood wrote a series called DMZ, which is absolutely fantastic, and I still read that. Adam Warren, it's not not Image, but Empowered is like one of my favorite superhero stories ever.
I think I have a couple of those of Empowered. Yep.
I love
his
his
work.
Neil Gaiman's Sandman, John Lehman's Chew. It's hilarious.
Never read that. I've heard about that. All right. I have to check it out. Yeah, I'll get it.
The premise is that like it's a cop who has the power to learn about something when he eats it.
Yes.
So as you might imagine, as a cop, it gets really gross really quick.
Yeah.
But there's also a mystery, like a mysterious bird flu kills millions of people. Now, bear in mind, this is early 2010, so not topical yet.
Yeah.
But it's hilarious. And so that inspired me to come up with my own stuff and create it, which is how I met Frankie.
Yeah. There you go.
Vertigo and 2010's Image.
That's some great
books.
stuff.
Yeah.
That's some great stuff, man. I mean, geez, Invincible. I mean, I still
Oh yeah.
still got to get Invincible, Walking Dead. I did finish all the Walking Dead. I think I still have a lot of Walking Deads, but
Saga.
Yeah.
Ooh, Saga.
how was
so good.
Saga? Yeah. All right. See. God, I need more room.
All the books and none of the time.
I know.
It's the great
I got
tragedy.
a huge stack of stuff I got to read.
Yeah.
And it's still just I slowly get through them.
We will read it though. We're getting to it.
Yeah. The funny part is like, do you find yourself rereading our comics? Like, do you go like I find like I finish it and then I kind of put it down, and then I'm like, okay, and then I sort of go from the scripts and start working on it, but I don't think I've really gone back to read it. It's so weird.
I mean, I don't know. Like our comics specifically.
Yeah, like the Kaijus and Cowboys. Have you gone back and sort of reread or just?
I mean, the relationship between a writer and his work is slightly different than an artist. Slightly different, but like, I mean, I think about it all the time. Like, the job I work at, like I'm on my feet like 12 hours a day, and like it's constant repetitive motion.
Yeah.
And so like it's very easy for your mind to wander and start to think, and like the process of creation and like the process of like thinking a storytelling problem through, like this is going to sound really dramatic, but it kept me sane. It keeps me sane.
I totally get it, man. Yeah,
in the face of just mind-meltingly awful monotony. But it's where I come up with some of my best ideas. So that's how it is. My
artist therapy as well. I told people that all the time. I go, they always talk to my wife's name is Jessica, and they'll go, wait, Frank, she's like, people are asking, they'd be like, well, does he ever get angry? And she goes, yeah, he gets angry. And my anger is not like how I used to be. Like when I would, because I grew up in Boston. I guess the hood back in the day, grew up in the projects and stuff like that. So I had a hard life in some degree. And my escapism was my art. I think that's the thing about it, was like monsters to me. They weren't as scary things. Like I love the Wolfman. I love werewolves. And stuff like that. And I think that in a certain degree, that sense of being able to unleash this rage, but then also to pull it back in and then be normal a little bit. That's what I was always in, that kind of mindset. Like when I was younger, I was like, oh, I just want to, you just go off. I was very short tempered and stuff. Saw some therapy, got some therapy and stuff, which was good for me. But one of the things the therapist sort of walked me through the process was, he said, well, Frank, what is the things you like doing? And I said, well, back in the day, I would hang with my friends, ride my bike. I love going outdoors, getting out there to free my mind. But then he said, well, what else? And I said, drawing. And he said, there you go. And I said, there's what? He said, drawing. He said, that's your therapy. He said, you're able. He said, anytime you feel that whatever that is, that's gripping you, put it on paper, put it down there so you can see it. And I think if you look at the way, even today, when you look at even in Kaijus and Cowboys, the way the action scenes and how I show like the monsters and how the B-Win, our hero is fighting them, is pretty intense. Not in a sense of glory, because I've never been a person who's into gore. Like I've seen gore and I've seen some serious stuff. and whatever. But I've never been a person who wanted to do that kind of stuff. I'm more into the framework of, I loved how the 1940s, 1950s filming, I guess 1940s, the more black and white filming, where they didn't show, you knew that there was violence, but they didn't have to show the intense. I love the stuff like Off the Shadows and, you know, things like that. So the intensity of combat. So that's what I kind of look at when I'm drawing. So that's where I'm able to put that sort of therapeutic feeling when I'm you know, when I'm drawing these characters and things like that. So yeah.
Incidentally, for anyone who does not know who's listening to this, BWIN stands for Bot with No Name.
Yes,
which is
yes.
what the main character stands. The main character we've called him. He doesn't speak, so like you know, Clint Eastwood and like you know all those old spaghetti westerns were a huge influence on the story and the characters. So
I got into a great conversation with somebody. Well, what I'm loving is like I had somebody, and this was a while ago, but they contacted me online. They were talking. They said, "Oh, it's a great character," and I was like, "Yeah, thanks." And they were like, "Yeah, what's the name?" And I said, "Well, Bwin." And I said, "Bot with no name." And he said, "Yeah, that's cool, but he should have a name." And I said, "Well, that's his name. You know, this is his name that he's going by now." But I said, I agree with you in a certain degree. I think that's you bring up a good point, and maybe that's something down the line. You know, we'll figure that out, but we have to first go through the journey. And right now, the mystery about what his name is and who he is and can he talk and all that stuff, that's the fun stuff. That's the fun stuff where the reader gets to, you know, go through it and then see where it leads off to. So,
and it does lead off to a lot that I'm not going to spoil, but you know.
But I love those engagements. I think that to me is what it's about with comic books, is the fact that somebody took the time to even engage you about something that you've created, that you put your passion and your thoughts and those waking hours and all that stuff, and then somebody comes and they actually have a conversation with you about it. They're like, "Yeah, you know, by the way, why does this character do this?" And I love that stuff, and that's what I'm hoping can sort of happen as we go along. You know, again, this is all about a volume game, so it's about, you know, once we get more issues out and stuff like that, and people start really getting into it, I'm like, man, it's going to be an amazing thing.
Oh yeah.
I love that. So before we get too far in, what is the comic? For anybody that doesn't know who's listening, what is the comic?
All right, Matt.
All right. So the basic premise of the comic is that for reasons that are not immediately revealed but will be in future issues, humanity has to leave Earth. And so they pack what's left into a giant sort of arc ship and head out to the stars. And the ship is run by this all-knowing, all-present, all-powerful artificial intelligence that we've labeled Father Mind. And Father Mind finds a planet that is habitable and is suitable for human life. But instead of waking everyone up, it decides to do what a lot of modern scientists do and just send a team of robots down to, like, you know, check things out, build things out, make sure that, you know, the planet is ready for human habitation. So that's going along. But unfortunately, while the planet is habitable for human life, it is also home to some very large and very angry creatures that are not appreciative of these robots who have landed on their home and are, you know, changing, you know, ripping down the trees, you know, tearing up the land and putting these ugly buildings where they don't belong.
Nice.
So the planet reacts. It's hostile to these robots, and so Father Mind decides to create, you know, robot warriors to fight the monsters. Hence the entire premise of the comic. And so like the first 6 issues of the book, it's basically one prolonged action scene. Like there's some world building, there's, you know, characters, you know, establishing and building out character relationships, and it culminates in issue 6 with something that is big and massive, and like you're gonna like it. Like did specifically request that Frankie pull out all the stops on this one. The next 6 issues are a little more cerebral, like we're building out the mystery as to what's really going on behind the scenes, what's really at stake here. How does everyone really feel about all of this? So yeah, that's the premise. There's humans need a new home. There are giant monsters in the way. Send robots to kill them.
Yep. Which is great. I mean, it's a simple. I think that's one of the things about it. It's almost like the old school Jack Kirby and Stan Lee and those guys when they did stories. It's a simplistic. It's something that you can just wrap your mind around. Where you just go, yeah, it's like arc. Guys going to a planet, you go down. There's a lot of stuff in it. I like immediately what you're talking, which I didn't think before. I'm thinking of HAL from 2001: A Space Odyssey. Immediately I don't know why that popped in my head, but then also the Starship Troopers, and it's all these great little things that already exist, but we have our own unique take on it. But one thought I think it's going to be special is, and I think even for myself, because I think that I tried to explain to people. I said that when Matt sent me a overview of where he wanted to take the story, and that was like way back in 2020.
Yeah, it was pretty like.
So I haven't even looked.
Yeah,
I haven't looked at it. I haven't looked at it. I kind of put it. I looked at it when I had it, and then I put it away because in a certain part of me is that I feel like that when you send me stuff, it's fresh and new. It's like, because I know in my head, I'm like, things are going to change. I know that he's going to probably have some kind of brain, like another fusion of thoughts going to come in, something made different. And even though he had the template, he's building something that's going to be unique, and sometimes it's going to be tweaked. So I kind of like that sort of nuance of just that newness. When he sends it to me, I go, oh my God, what's this? Wow, this character, such and such. And then I build off of that. I think that's that great synergy in there. Of our creative process. No, I love it. I do. I think it's a wonderful thing. I try to imagine, like, was that how Stan Lee and Jack Kirby worked? Because did Stan Lee write some plot or whatever and said, here you go, Jack, and then Jack sit there and go, and he'll start drawing and he'll write notes or whatever, and then Stan Lee looks at it and goes, oh, okay, all right. But I almost wonder if that was the old school Marvel way of doing stuff, where you just kind of bounce off. You got two people with two different kind of creative kind of perspectives, but they're meeting in the middle to forge something really unique and different. Maybe.
If it is similar to what Lee and Kirby did, it's definitely done with a lot less alcohol and a lot less tobacco.
Oh, most definitely.
So
most definitely.
So the fact that you brought up Jack Kirby and Stan Lee is great, because I was going to ask you, how does both of your backgrounds, because both of you have done different things, how did they help create what you've created? How did that background help you guys?
Well, I mean, do you want me? Okay. I've been doing this, man. 30 plus years in the art industry. I first went into, during the time of the 80s. I graduated in 88. When I was in high school at the time, I lived in Boston. I grew up in Boston, actually. And during that time, there was a lot of great programs. First off, I was very fortunate in the sense that once I got to high school, I had a lot of mentors, people who just, I don't really cared about me. They cared, I wasn't a bad kid in school. I was more of I always joke, I said I was like Loki. I was a kid who cracked jokes. I just didn't get caught, but I had friends and I would joke, but I did my homework, where some of my friends were just like, they would joke around, but they wouldn't do their homework, that kind of stuff, and they would get in trouble. And whereas I would do my homework, but then also my teachers would catch me and they'd be like, well, Frank, you got this, you got potential, but you got to stop goofing off, kind of. And I was like, all right, whatever. That kind of, because you're young, you think you know everything. So, but still, these teachers cared about me, And I remember one teacher who was a history teacher, like Matt talks about history. I wish I could see his image. Like I suck with names, but visually in my mind, I could sort of see his face and stuff. And I remember when I was having trouble with history, and he came to me and he said, well, Frank, he said, you like comic books? And I said, yeah. And just like that, I was just like, yeah. I was not even looking at him, just kind of like a kid, whatever. And he was like, He said, well, Odysseus and the Argonauts and all that stuff. He started talking about this Greek mythology. And he said, there's monsters in there. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. And he said, those are comic books. And I said, no, sir. And he said, no, really. And he started laying it out to me. And I was like, wow, these amazing stories were like comic books. They were these massive stories, these adventures and stuff like that. And then it pulled me into history. So he was one teacher. And then there was other teachers like science and English and things like that. So while I was going on, when I got into high school, they were like, well, we see that you love drawing. So we're going to try to put you in a program. And they put me into this program called ORC at the time. It's called Occupational Resource Center. And what it was like for kids who would go to half day at this place. And then the rest of the half day, you go back to your home school. So I would go to this place, say like in the morning. And it focused on illustration. And then also they had broadcasting and all kind of other stuff. And it was a massive building. I remember going there, I did illustration. I was like, oh, it's fascinating. Then they were like, oh, guess what? There's some Saturday morning programs at Mass Art. Do you want it? And I said, yeah, sure. I would just take stuff. It was a time when schools and the district and stuff, they had this money and they were trying to help kids sort of find their way as they were about to go into the real world once you graduate high school. And I took advantage of a lot of these programs, and eventually I ended up getting a scholarship. And it blew my mind because I was like, wow, I actually got a scholarship. And they said, well, okay, go find yourself a school you want to go to. And so next thing I know, I checked a few schools. I went to architectural school, hated it. I was like, I'm not an architect. And I didn't want to go to Mass Art. I just was like, that's not my thing. And then I remember getting a notice from it was earlier on for Joe Kubrick. The Joe Kubrick school was like, hey, we heard about your kid, would you like to come down and be here and stuff? And it was in New Jersey, and I was like, no. Because I was afraid. I was like, I didn't want to leave Massachusetts. I didn't want to, I was like, I don't know anybody down there. I don't want to go. So they were like, okay, well, there's another school, Frank. And I said, okay, what's this other school? And they said, it's called the Butera School of Art, very small school on Beacon Street. You want to go check it out? I said, sure, whatever. So I went there. And that school, I remember they were straightforward. They were like, well, they said, well, they looked at my stuff. I did some still life, but I also had comic book pages. And they said, well, kid, we want to be honest with you. This isn't a school for starving artists. And I was like, wow. They were like, we're going to show you how to make money as an artist. They were like, we don't teach people to starve. If you want to starve, then you can go to some of those other schools. You want to whatever and such. But if you want to make money and make a living and a career, then here we are. And I was like, yeah, I want to make money. I want to make money and I want to be able to survive. I mean, I was young, and that's the whole thing. My whole point was like, I want a career. I want to be able to, prove that I can do this thing and have something because, I was like, what else? The only other option for me was probably security guard. I was a security guard, put myself through school, and I was a really good security guard. I mean, my captain loved me. He was like, well, Frank, the next level would be armed and all that stuff. And who knows where I would have went with that. But they also knew that I was very passionate about my art. So I went to the 3-year school and it changed me. It changed my whole perspective on just a lot of different things. And I just was like, man, I want to make something of myself. I want to learn as much as I can. I think that was my big thing. So when I left art school, I wasn't in the comic books anymore. I was just like, I want to grow as an artist because they'd opened up this vast door. They said, well, comic books is cool, but here's the art industry. And they were like, think of the art industry as an ocean. And comic books are like a river that connects to the ocean, or like storyboards. You want to be storyboard artist? Then that's a river. That's a river right there. And then you want to work in toys? You want to draw toys? Yeah, that's another river. You want to work in an auto plant designing cars? That's another. So it was like you had the art industry as this vast ocean, but then you had all these different avenues of different places. And so I was like, well, I want an eclectic portfolio. I want to be able to have the ability to work with various different, people so I can learn and then, learn as much as I can. So, it was like maybe 3 years after I graduated, and literally 3 years after, an opportunity came where I was able to work to actually get paid doing some artwork. And it was for a production company, a movie production company. And I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And I jumped on it part-time. And then eventually I moved on full time. And then I worked on 2 films, got storyboard credit in the films. One film was called Next Stop Wonderland. And the other one, I think Brad Bird directed it. It was early Brad Bird. It might be. I could be wrong. But and then the other one was Squeeze, a movie that was filmed in Dorchester. And I got screen credit on that. And then from there, I just started bouncing around. I worked for an animation studio, freelance, did storyboards, concept art. And then from there, things got a little rough for me. So then I was like, I got to make money. I was really like, I got to survive. And so a friend of mine said, hey, what about advertising? And I was very nervous about advertising. I tried to hold off from it, but then I said, screw it, I need money. Went into advertising, and it was an eye opener. It's like, I don't know if you ever watched Mad Men. Great show. But ad agencies are probably like, I consider ad agencies like the pinnacle of like a fun artist in the field, because you can make a lot of money. You can make a lot of money, but you got to have a certain, toughness about yourself, like deadlines. You're dealing with a lot of different creatives. I mean, when I say creative people, I'm talking about copywriters who will just blow your mind away, like the concepts and ideas that they go through. I've sat in meetings, $1 million accounts, where they're just talking about how ways in which they can sell to people. And it's mind-blowing. I don't think people ever take a time to even, like, when I look at TV commercials, I'm dissecting them apart. I'm breaking everything apart in my brain. So when working in that element, it was an incredible time, and I learned so much. I learned discipline. That was a big thing. I learned a lot of discipline. I learned patience. I learned about production, about value in that, and then also the sense of the value of myself as an artist. That's another big thing for creative folks, just finding that value in yourself, because what we do, people look at that and they go, really, you get paid to draw, or really you get paid to write, but you got it. Once you find the value, you go, well, what I'm bringing is very important. And I think that's what my teachers were always teaching me. One of my teachers took me on a walk. I never forget it, when I was at my lowest in art school, and he said, Frank, took me up Beacon Street, and he said, and my head was down, and I was really considering dropping out. And he said, Frank, what's that sign down there? I said, that's the Cheers sign. It's Cheers, the bar. And he said, who do you think did that? And I said, I don't know. He said, an artist. I said, okay. He said, see these brownstone buildings? I said, yeah. He said, yeah, who do you think did those? I said, I don't know. He said, an architect, an artist. He said, the public gardens are right over there. Takes a landscaper to make those flowers really pretty, don't you think? And I said, yeah. He said, an artist. He said, the clothes on your back was done by an artist. He said, the buildings, someone had to draw it out. He said, the visual, the clothing, the designs, the movies you watch, the TV shows, everything you see is done by an artist. He said, never, ever let anyone tell you otherwise. He said, you got to understand, that's the value of it. We bring a lot to the table. Don't accept anything less. And that was the start. And he wasn't the only one. There were other mentors. He said, don't be arrogant. He said, don't be arrogant about it. Know your worth. And from that point, I said, yeah, I know my worth. I know what I bring to the table. And, and I'm going to give 200%. Now, if you're going to take care of me, then we can work together. So I think those qualities all helped to bring me up to this point. I know I got a little long-winded there, but it just helped me. It brings that sense of like discipline and stuff, which you need with comic books. I think the thing about it is that I see a lot of people dreaming about doing comic books, and I think it's a wonderful dream, but you got to understand that this is work. It is, and it can be hard work from the writer to the artist, to conceptualizing the idea, the structure and the story. You have writers sometimes who are also doing stuff in the production as well, adding into it. It's a massive process, it's a massive machine. You have to, if you're passionate enough, you can make incredible magic, but you got to understand it is a job. So yeah.
I have heard this a dozen times, and it never gets boring.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I want to be able. I talked to Jess, and I said, Jess, I said, many of us out here, I think a lot of people are kind of searching because they go, well, what can we leave the world? Because I guess as I'm getting older, you start looking at your own mortality and stuff, and you go, what am I going to leave the world? And I think that people sometimes think it's going to be something grandiose, and maybe not. I mean, when I met Herb Trimpe, he was like, I met him a few times, but when I looked at him, looked into his eyes, this man's eyes, and told him how the impact of what it was, a comic book. He just looked at me and he was like, yeah, I did this job. He's like, I did this job, and and such and such. And I was like, wow, he was very humble about it. He was just like, yeah, I did a job and I drew it. And he's like, I'm glad you liked it, and I'm glad it did this for you. He impacted me, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that he impacted. Those are the kind of things that we do. I feel strongly that somebody, be it a child or someone a little older, whatever, going to look at this and they're going to read this, and then they may get impacted. They may feel that fire inside them to do something, be it write their own story or draw their own thing. That's what I can hope for. Yeah, and now drop the mic.
That's very. I was doing one of my Kaiju Conversation live streams, yep. And we went down that rabbit hole of like art is everything, and
yes, it is.
You have to take a step back, and it's you almost have to leave your body and like look at the world from a third person point of view.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And when you do that, like your mind can, if you can successfully do that, your creativity and your mind is endless. Like at that point you have reached like this next level of creativity, and you can draw the most amazing things. You can write the most amazing things. You can
There's there's a wonderful quote from C.S. Lewis that I have made a point to memorize. I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit, but he's talking about originality. Mm-hmm. And the quote goes something along the lines of, like, even in art and literature, anyone who attempts to be original shall never be original. Whereas if you simply try to tell the truth without giving it 2 pence of whether or not it's been told before, you will stumble upon being original 9 times out of 10 and never.
Yes.
So, that's,
I'll never forget, one of my mentors once told me also, because I was, again, at that stage in my life in my 20s, and he said, Frank, you know what? He said, people always run around and they worry about people stealing stuff from them. And I said, yeah, and he was like, he said, but here's the thing. They can't steal you. He said, the thing about it, they could try and steal. Like, somebody could try to do their own version of Kaijus and Cowboys.
Oh, yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be Kaijus and Cowboys. It's almost, and that was his point. He was like, me and Matt are the energy that creates this. And that's what makes that special. It's like when people try to do Kirby. When I see people try to do Kirby or even try to emulate, it's like, you're attempting to do something, but you're not Kirby. You can never be Kirby.
No,
I can't be Kirby. I can't be Herb Trimpe. I can be me. And I always found that was so profound. It really changed a lot of I was like, wow, man. I said, yeah. He's like, yeah. He said, don't worry about it. He said, the thing about it, they're going to exist. There's always going to be people out there who exist, who are going to try to take for whatever reason. I don't even try to even get into why they do what they do. But there's people who are going to try to take stuff because they go, wow, I saw it. I'm going to whatever and such and such. Fine. Mm-hmm. The thing about it is, I know that I'm creating something that's true and passionate, and I'm not changing on that. And that's what people are going to be investing into. They're not going to be investing into the carbon copy.
Yeah, I think every creative person or person who wants to be creative has a period in their. It's usually in the early career where they're like, oh, these are my ideas. I can't share them with anyone. And I know this because that was me for a pretty long time. But then I realized, if someone tries to steal my idea, they'll do it, but it won't be the same thing that, I create, or it won't be the same thing Frankie creates. Yeah. If I'm not saying I'm going to do this. If I went to another artist and gave them the same script, it would not look the same. It wouldn't the layouts would be different. It would be different. So now it's like, oh yeah, I've got this. This is how it happens. This is where it's gonna go. I've also got this idea. It's gonna mix with this and this and this. And so it's like, okay. It's like it not only is it okay to take inspiration, which which is what they say these days, from other people's ideas, but like please do, if you pick up a copy of Kaijus and Cowboys and you read it and you're inspired to create something, that is the greatest honor I can possibly think of.
Hey, and I just want to put it out there, we love fan art. And that's
sweet Lord, yes.
Actually, we'll do it right here. Matt, have you thought about doing do you think we should do remember how Marvel used to have the write-in, like the newsletter, like people could write in or something? Do you think we should create one?
I mean, isn't that what Twitter's for?
Well, I mean, like in the comic books.
Yeah, I mean,
just as a homage to the old Bronze Age style of people sending stuff in and whatever. I mean, they don't have to physically send it to you. They could email it to you, like an image or whatever, like the drawings and stuff like that. I'll put them on the spot.
Sure. I mean, we could set up a. I mean, I've been meaning to set up a website for the book for ages. So I mean, that'd be the fire that would get this thing going.
I think that's the fun. I think that's one of the things I kind of miss with comic books was that Stan Lee, and just the other people too. They made it so much fun. Like if I was to open up one of the old books, you would see the Mighty Marvelettes, Marvel. It was like this weird experience. Like it wasn't like you just picked up a book and you just was like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna pick up this book and you kind of whatever. It was like you were being transported into the Marvel world. I'm harping on Marvel because I felt that Stan Lee was the epitome of that. We don't have a Stan Lee anymore, but Stan Lee was the epitome of the comic book industry. That whole ideal of just fun. It really the bottom line of it, the foundation of it was fun. You could tell all these fantastic stories, and these stories all had an underlying messages in it, which was fantastic. They weren't heavy-handed. There was some cool messages in there, but it was about fun and about the fact of people enjoying the fact of being comic book readers. When comic book reading was almost shunned at one point, as looked down upon.
Almost, it absolutely was. My God.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, you're thinking about when the MCU first came out, and it kind of has become mainstream. But I mean, there was that point where it was kind of that was a thing. It was this thing where only a few certain people were into it and stuff. Not few, but you know what I mean. Like groups of people who were kind of into it and whatever. It wasn't
fewer people then than are now. I mean, exactly. the MCU has basically turned all of us into mid-level Marvel fans. If you would ask me in 2007 who the Guardians of the Galaxy were, I'd be like, who? What?
Yeah, but the downside is that unfortunately, many of those people going to those movies aren't getting books. They're not reading the comic books. That's the downside of it, and that's the struggle, the frustration. Because it was funny. There's a person on Twitter. I can't think of his name, but he's been posting a lot of old school videos from the comic book eras and stuff. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but he posted one that was really cool where it showed an old TV commercial of G.I. Joe, a G.I. Joe comic book. It starts off as a cartoon. You go, oh my God, is this one of the episodes? And you go, no. It immediately turns into a G.I. And I remember seeing the ad on TV where it turned into an actual comic books were ads on TVs where they actually did for comic books. So I'm like, why don't we see that anymore? These are the things that brought in those new young readers because they saw it. They was right there in their face and they're like, oh my God, I just saw it on TV. Now I gotta get a comic book. But we don't see that. We see video games. I mean, man, you can see. I've seen some video games. I've sat down on streaming, and all of a sudden I'm watching a show, and all of a sudden I see the most elaborate video game commercial ever. I'm thinking it's a movie, and I go, "Wow," that. I mean, that's what comic books. We need that again, And I'm hoping that may be the start of it. I'm hoping that down the line that's the start of it, where we bring back the fun of comic books, the fun of collecting comic books, the fun of reading comic books, enjoying them. That's my dream.
We're getting there.
We're getting there. One book at a time.
Speaking of getting there, what's when creating, and you can either go issue by issue, or if you want to talk broad, like big picture thing, you can. But what's the timeline look like for a project like this?
Cool.
I mean, big. I'm a big picture kind of guy. Like
yes,
you know,
yes.
I was a history major in college, and so like, you know, talking about, you know, Greek myths and legends and history, like that was my childhood. So that's really cool. But like, I mean, in terms of process, I mean, I think the script, I write the script. I don't really have like, I don't really, the only real deadlines I set for myself are when Frankie's done with art. Like at this current moment, I have about 18 pages of issue 7 written. And I know what's going to happen. Like, I know how it works. I just haven't gotten around to writing it yet.
Which is great. Yeah, it's okay. But, yeah.
You know, But you know, when Frankie comes back and says, like, you know, oh, the book is done, like that. I mean, like everyone says, like, you know, oh, you know, you gotta, to be an true artist, you must be completely free of all restraints, and it's like not necessarily. Like, you know, there are fewer great motivators than a deadline. Like deadlines are the best motivation you can possibly have to get things done. And like when you see, like, you know, complete and total creative freedom, it gets like it's possible to get something, make something good, but like it's a lot easier when it's like when you have restrictions, which it seems counterintuitive, but like, I mean, you remember that video game No Man's Sky?
Ooh.
Vaguely. Yeah, it was a big thing a couple years ago, and like it promised complete and total exploration, complete and total freedom, and like procedurally generated worlds that, like, you know, you would never run out of places to explore, things to do. And then they released the game, and it was crap.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And so, but like, you know, the development team, like they realized what happened. They put their heads down. They locked the doors. Didn't talk to anyone, and they fixed it. And now it's different because like now they have, like, you know, it's a little more open, like less like complete and total freedom, and more like, you know, here's stuff to do. It's open world. So like, you know, like, yeah, like, you know, giving yourself, you know, intentionally setting limits for yourself, or like, you know, creating within, like, you know, not tying yourself down, but like building like walls around you, sort of a little bit, and like creating within those walls. If that makes any sense.
Well, actually,
so like,
like when me and Matthew talked, I knew from the beginning. I said, because coming from working in, like, you know, the sense of advertising and other like sort of, you know, studio work and stuff like that, I understood that production time is so important. It is. It's like, I think that many people who, you know, like when people go to movies, I don't know if a lot of people, and I get it, because a lot of folks don't really, you know, you don't have to care about how the sausage is made. You just want the sausage. You don't need to know about the process. I care about it because I work behind the scenes and that stuff. So like, I'm one of those people where I'll sit in the theater and I'll watch the credits and I'll get a smile looking at all the people who worked on the movie, because those are fellow artisans that did their thing, and they're able to make a living from it. It fills me with a joy. But also I understand that there's a reason why production time is needed. Like, someone will watch a movie and they'll see 2 hours of it, but it took like 6 months to a year, possibly, maybe even longer than that, to get that 2 hours. And why do we need that time? Because of all kind of different things. I mean, when you're in the process of creating stuff, things happen. Even in films, many writers, script writers, and I've seen it. I've been on sets where the writer will be sitting right there, like they've already done the script, but there may be changes. director will look over and be like, hey, I need a change. And they'll have to, you see the writer and they run over, they got to change something instantaneous. These are things that you have no control over. It just happens. And so same thing with comic book production, where I go, give yourself some breathing time for all kind of events. First thought in your head, what if somebody gets sick and they need time off? Okay, that could be a week, could be 2 weeks. Okay, could be. You don't know. Yeah. What about if we got to make edits? Okay, how long does that take? You know, you have to factor enough time for you. Just even that time of just mental rest. You know, you don't want to be going so aggressively with your story and where you're just like, oh my God, I gotta hammer it, I gotta get this stuff and whatever. And then when it comes out, you're like, I hate it. This isn't what I wanted to write. So there's that time too where you have to allocate, where there's a breathing time. When I remember working on projects with agency projects, and they would have already, when they called me, they had already started working like maybe 3 or 4 months already ahead. And then they'll be like, okay, we need the illustrator to come in. So they've already been working on it, like concepting the concept, everything, the ideas. And that's 4 months. 4 months. And then they say, okay, call Frank or call whoever in, the illustrator in to do the storyboards or whatever. So I tell anybody out there, if you truly care about your project, give it the time that it needs. Give it the time. If it needs 3 months, give it 3 months. If it needs 4 months, give it 4 months. Trust me, those months are going to breeze by. And when you see the final product, you can at least be able to be proud of it. Like that, I've always said that I want to be able to, if we're at a show or something, somebody it has the book in their hand, I want to feel proud about this book. I want to feel that I gave 200%. I don't want to feel like, yeah, I kind of fudged. You know, that's the worst feeling ever. You know, like I won't say it because I'm old school. My teacher was like, they said, never let them see you cry, never let you see you. But I'll tell you one thing, I ever want to feel something where I'm like, I rushed this and I know it. I just gave somebody something that was almost 50% in under, you know, and I have the audacity to ask them to spend their hard-earned money on something where I gave 50% less. I don't want to be that kind of person. I don't want to be that kind of artist. I've seen too many artists. I've seen too many creative teams that are like that. Like they still walk around with a big smile on their face. And it's like, you're asking $25, $50, you know, $10. And it's like, you know, the book's like 15 pages and, you know, and I'm not seeing much of a story. And we've all, you know, I think that's one of the problems that we're seeing today. And I think that people are starting to, they're like, we don't want to deal with that anymore because you're seeing so much of it. So many people that are doing this kind of stuff. You know, take the time, work on it. Don't rush it. Don't sit there, have a dream, and then go, or see a movie and go, oh my God, I got the next John Wick story. Oh, and then you start rushing off. It's like, no. Pace yourself. Pace it. Pace yourself. Play around with the story in your head. See if you're comfortable with it. If you can find an artist or somebody to work with it, then you find the right artist. That's another important thing. Find the right artist that can work with you. Don't accept anything less. You know, I'm one of those rare people where I like doing a bunch of different things. Doing the artwork is one aspect, but I love engaging online. I love promoting. It's funny because I learned it all from advertising, where it was like team. You're like, Frank, you're part of a team, you know. So there's a creative director, there's the copywriters, there's all these different people, and I'm part of that. And so I wanted to win. I want when the client finally gets, we finally do the pitch for the client meeting, I want to feel good. I want to feel great that I was part of it, so that when I turn on the TV, I go, yeah, I worked on that commercial. You know, that's a great feeling. So the same thing is that if you're working on a team, you got to have that team kind of mentality. You got to be like, hey, we're in this. We're both. If one of us screws up, then we both screw up. If we're both moving, functioning at 200%, we got 400%. You know, it's like this is magic. That it's just a wonderful thing, and I would tell anybody out there that's the place that you want to be at.
Yeah, the two things I would add to that, and like as Frankie said, like, you know, what he, he learned his artistic craft through advertising. I actually learned a lot of my artistic craft through music, because at one point I was actually a professional musician.
Nice.
Yeah. College job paid, gave me spending money for college.
What was your instrument?
I was singing in a choir. Yeah.
Nice. All right.
Church choir that paid us. Yep. And I actually originally wanted to sing opera when I went to college, and then I took one semester of music theory. I was like, no.
Yeah.
And I switched to history. But like when the two things I would add to that, you have to love what you do, yes. But at the same time, you can't love it enough that like to become obsessed yes. over it. You have to be able to let it go. You have to be able to take a step back and say, okay, let's, this isn't necessarily working. Let's just, cut it and throw it away and like maybe add something new. You also need to know when to say enough is enough. Because dear Lord, I have seen so many people who create something and it's like absolutely amazing. And they're like, well, if I just change this one little thing. Yeah. And then it's like we're going to change this, I got to change this little thing. And then it just turns into mush. Yeah, I agree. And it's come on, like, and so, it's the same with music. It's like, you have your string quartet and like, you're not going to add anything else. Sure. Like you don't want to, and everything's got to be balanced and like, you got to, take things away and like, balance it out a little bit. So, there's that too.
No, I totally agree with you because it's like, when my teacher, as soon as you said that, I was like, they were like, bless it. That's what my teacher used to call it. He said, Frank, you got to bless it. He said, you've done as much as you can. Move on. You'll do better next time. It was always like you'll do better next, and that's how I look at it. Like each. That's why I go to journey of the book. It's like from issue 1, even from issue 0. Like I look at issue 0, and I go, wow. I can tell that the artwork is somewhat a little different than issue where I'm at in issue 6, and that's what I want. I want a progression. I want sort of the style. I'm not going to get too radical with it, but you can see little progressions. It's almost like if you saw some of John Byrne's. I remember I saw a book that John Byrne did. Oh, I just remember having a robot on it. I can't think of the name of the robot, but it was an old John Byrne, and you look at it and you go, wow, that's John Byrne. But then to the point where he was from there, and it was some of his early work to where he's at with Fantastic Four, or the X-Men and stuff. I mean, miles, but you can see the progression, and I think that's fantastic. Yeah. It's funny because I think about it, I'm going to be 53 this year. It's crazy, and I'm like, man, when I was in my 20s, I was a straight up hustler, man. There was no computers for me. I was me knocking on doors. I remember doing stuff where like I didn't sleep. Like now I value my sleep. Like I ain't lying. I'm like, I got to get my sleep. I got to get at least 7 to 8 hours sleep, man. It's like, no, like all that. But boy, when I was in my 20s, I no sleep. But I was doing a bunch of stuff. I was all over the place. Party crazy. I had some fun times in Boston and New York and stuff like that. But So you're at a prime stage.
I'm 34. I'm 34. I turned 34 last month, and I spent my 20s busting. Can I swear?
Go for it.
I spent my 20s fucking busting my ass, and I fucking hated it. I was working 7 jobs at one point. Ooh. I was getting up.
See, I didn't want to do that. I did that when I was much younger. When I was getting up younger, at like I was doing that. Yeah.
3 a.m. and not getting home until 7 p.m. And I was like, I have to change. This has to I have to move. I have to do something else, or else I'm going to wind up in the goddamn hospital. So
I think that's why I went to art school. When I went to art school, I was like, I want to, because I grew up, most of my, my family and stuff, they were doing like, construction work, that kind of stuff, things like that. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I was like, as soon as I had these teachers saying I had my skill, which was drawing, I said, I want to try to make money drawing. That was it. Like, I wanted to just have a skill that people would pay me to do stuff. And so that I wouldn't have to do multiple. Like I did I started working when I was 12 and I never stopped working. I mean, I would hustle. I was a kid who hustle during snowstorms. Shovel stuff, make some money. Fold newspapers, make money. I was a stock boy. I did landscaping. I did telemarketing. Oh my God, it's a lot of crazy stuff. And then security was probably the one that was the longest that led into my art school years. And that was a defining one. It was like, okay, you either have a choice. You continue with art, take a chance with art, or you just stick with security and then become the next level. Like ideally becoming like a personal guard or something, I guess, armed security. But, I was like, I said, by my age of where I'm at now, I said, I don't want to be like stressing, doing multiple stuff. Because it wears on you. I'm not gonna lie. I can feel my body aging. I can feel my body aging. I'm like, and I've had a couple of surgeries and stuff. And I'm like, nah, man, I got to try to chill out. I want to, I'm maintaining the machine. Like your machine right now, Elijah, you're right now, you're that fast car, the gears are shifting. So you're in a prime state. Just take care of yourself. That's all I can say. Just try to maintain the machine well, because you want to try to make it up to the half-century mark and celebrate.
You're gonna start feeling your joints pop.
Oh,
yeah. I call it being crunchy.
I do like a yoga program with my wife and stuff, and just stretching. Like right now, I'm just stretching my hips. Oh, it's trying to maintain, man.
Yeah, there's so right now for the podcast, we're doing weekly episodes. I have issue 9, issue 10, and 11 of the magazine I'm working on.
Oh, good.
I have I do one live stream a month, so I have to do that. Kaiju Ramen's going to All Monsters Attack in May. So
congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm going with them, so like I have to prep for my own trip.
Man.
And on top of that, I work 50 hours at a management job.
Oh,
I have no time. I sleep from like 3 a.m. till like 6 a.m. That's my sleep time. And even then, there's nights. Anytime I record a podcast, because my co-host Rex, he lives in Australia, so we start our recording at like 2 a.m.
Wow.
And by the time I'm back home, it's 8 a.m. And I go to bed and I wake up and I go to work.
My feeling that hopefully all this work will pay off for you much earlier. So hopefully by 30, it maybe you never know. Like if Kaiju Ramen, if Kaiju Ramen becomes successful and stuff like that, hey, you might be retiring by 30. You never know. See, that's the fun part. I'm gonna tell you right now, one of the things that's blown my mind with with the internet and about the technology and stuff, how it's changed, is that literally I've seen what I call the young folks make careers. I mean, literally, you're seeing kids. I guess kids by my standards, who are like they're buying homes. They're doing all the stuff that I was not doing at that age, which is mind blowing. I mean, I wasn't thinking about buying a home or investing in stuff and things like that. I did the stocks a little bit later on, closer to my 30s, but so that's the thing. The technology, I think, helps us if you utilize it right. Don't go on arguing and getting in flame wars with people. Don't waste your time with that. Focus, and use it as a tool to get your message out. You might be able to make something. It'd be fantastic to be like, hey, 30 years old, I'm retired. Or 30 years old, I'm at a place where this is what I want to do. So you're not like doing 5 jobs and stuff. You're like, now I've condensed it down to like maybe two things I do now. Now I can sleep now on at least on the weekends. So I look at it like that. Like you have to go through all that stuff just to maybe get to the point where you can be like, whatever. And I'm with you, brother. I'm rooting for you.
You're going to be fine, Elijah. You're going to be great.
I remember when you guys first did, Kaiju Ramen, when it first started promoting on Twitter. The first one I saw was Twitter. That was only like, 2020?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 2020. I think it popped out. I was like, what is this thing? And and I think, didn't Matt Frank, he did some art. He did like a ramen kind of thing with Godzilla or something. Not Pikachu. It was something. I knew it was some character dressed like Godzilla. But I was like, wow. I said, that's pretty impressive. So you guys, you definitely have done some steps. Smart. You definitely have invested the time into it. You know, and I think that if you're seriously minded about it, sky's the limits.
Yeah.
You know?
I know
Yeah.
I posted on my Facebook, my personal Facebook, like I work for Kaiju Ramen.
Yep.
And a person I had met at G Fest like half a decade ago. I was like 15 when I met him. And we ended up friends on Facebook. He reached out to me after he saw that I wrote for this magazine. And he said, "Hey, I've got a book that I'm working on. And I was wondering if you'd like to work on it with me." So I did that. I wrote a review for Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster.
Oh, nice.
And
I think I remember that book. Yeah.
I did that back in 2021. And it just came out a few months ago. And then I woke up like a month ago. And I had like 10 messages. It's like, what happened? What did I do? Who died? Like, what's going on? And it got nominated for a Rondo.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
So I woke up and I was a Rondo Award nominated writer.
Nice.
And I was like,
fantastic.
I would have never expected that. Like,
well, but see, another big thing that I think is important is that you took a chance. And that's the thing a lot of people have to understand is that to get into this kind of business, any kind of business really, you got to take a leap of faith. I think that I look back at me and Matthew's relationship, and Matthew took a leap of faith with me. I mean, he had put out a call for looking for an artist, and I could have ended up being some stummy artist who would try to take him for whatever. You know,
I've had a few of those.
I know you, and I've heard this. It just breaks my heart to hear stories like that because it's just sad. It's just sad. It's like the contractors. Like when I was a homeowner at one point, and I would hear these horror stories about contractors. They were like, "Beware, because you pay this person half up. Next thing you know, you can't find them." And it's sad that people do this kind of stuff. And so, you know, when me and Matthew, we had met up, when we connected. Pretty much, I was trying to tell him. I said, "Look, man," I said, "check me out." I said, "I'm on LinkedIn. If you feel free, if you want to talk to some of those people, contact them. You know, I'm the real deal. I'm not somebody up here that's gonna flake on you. You know,
I mean, sort of a behind the scenes from my perspective. Like when the first thing that Frankie and I ever worked on was a webcomic that I wanted to do called The Secret Lives of Villains.
Yes.
It's a sitcom about a family of supervillains. You can find it. It's still up. It has fallen by the wayside for reasons. But it's on CambrianComics.com if you ever want to check that out. But I had this idea for a webcomic, but before that, I had this other idea for it was like Star Wars with mech suits, basically.
Oh, wow.
And I had put out a call for that, and I was perusing artists. It was a website called Freelance. I was like, that one looks good. That one looks good. And then I saw Frankie's. I was like, oh, I want him. I want him.
Wow.
I hope he shows some interest in this. And he didn't. And I was like, drat. But I found another artist who actually wound up flaking on me. And then, yeah. And then I was like, well, okay, start again, try again. Let's see what we can do with the webcomic. And then he responded, and the rest is history. So that's how that happened.
Yeah, I've had people. Sometimes I've always felt that sometimes people get, they get intimidated, like they're afraid to ask. And one of the things about me is that, especially working in the fields that I've worked, is that there's the art of the negotiation. It's about like if you just ask the person. I remember one of my teachers, he sort of put it in my head. He said, "Frank," he said, "you'll never know what something is unless you ask." And then fine, if a person doesn't, if they don't agree, then they don't agree, then you move on. But what if they do? Then whatever. And so I started getting into that mindset where I'm like, look, I'll talk to you. If it's something that seems reasonable and it's something that I can get jazzed about, then we can work through things. But we got to get to the point where we can talk. And I think that's the biggest thing that I think that a lot of people struggle with is communication. I mean, real communication. You know, the fact of when you're on a project and you talk to the person, or if you can't do the project. I mean, I've had to turn down a lot of different things. You know, actually, it's funny because of my workload. I'll tell you guys, and I'll tell you, Matthew, too. I had somebody approach me to do storyboards for the new Good Burger movie, and I was like, I'm swamped with work, and it was nice. I mean, it's going to be filmed here in Rhode Island, the new Good Burger 2. And I said, the person contacted me, and I was graciously, I stepped aside. I said, look, I said, you know, because I understand that to do storyboards, especially for film, working with a director, is really intense. And they were like, well, we're gonna need a storyboard artist like next month. And I was like, that's gonna be too intense. That's gonna be something where I won't be able to work. I won't be able to do any. And I got a couple other projects going on. And I said, you know, I got to step away from it. But I said, you know, hey, if things, whatever down the line, you know, maybe we can continue this or whatever. And they said, oh, thank you for returning. And that's the thing you talk. But there's many times that you'll be surprised at stuff that I've turned down, that just because I was like, I believe in that sense of loyalty on projects. I'm maybe that's an old school kind of way, but you know, I've made some agreements with folks. And I've made a promise with Matthew, and so things get done. In my mind, I'm like, things have to get done. These are very important to me. So that's the kind of person that I am. I'm very old school with that. I believe that if I shake your hand, look you in the eyes, we got a deal. You know, I don't believe in that whole flaking out. I don't believe in not communicating with people. If we're doing emails or texts and things seem a little screwed, I'm getting on the horn with you. I'm going to talk to you. You need to hear my voice. I need to hear your voice. You need to understand that we're both human beings. That we're both, maybe something could be figured out or whatever. Those are important things. And I always try to tell any person out there, you know, the young folks who are getting into this or whatever. I say, look, don't be afraid. I know if you're grappling with certain issues and stuff like that, and you're kind of like, I don't want it. Just take a chance. Take that leap of faith. You know, the worst can happen. Someone could say no. Fine, they say no. You know, you move on.
The worst
another big
say
thing.
No.
One last thing, and I promise I'll get the ears back, because I remember my teacher once said, he said, and this is like a one that you probably heard 1,000 times. One door opens, 5 door more. One door closes, 5 more open. My teacher once said, he kept saying that to me. He said, Frank, he said, that's how the universe works. He said, you have nothing to worry about. He said, people sometimes think of the world as small little tribes or small little neighborhoods, but we're not. It's a global world. Like right now, I'm talking to you two, and you're both in certain areas of the country. You know that, and I've dealt with people across the sea. So it's like your mindset has to change in the degree of like, well, these are the only things I can reach. No, you can reach more. You know, I've done it. I've even done it even before the computers. Getting on phones, talking to people like in England and stuff, like, oh my God, oh wow. You know, so or talking to somebody on the West Coast, doing work with them. You know? So that's an important thing too. Don't ever think limited. Yeah, don't limit yourself. Don't think that the world is just a small little thing with just you in this little area. It's very vast. It's all about using the technology, using these tools that you have for what they're meant to be used for. You know, connecting with clients, connecting with new people, connecting with your audience, talk with them, engage with them, you know, all that fun stuff.
Yeah. So we've been talking about creativity and how to not limit yourself. So on the topic of Kaiju versus Cowboys, what inspired you to make the designs or make the characters?
Oh, jeez.
What birthed what we have now?
Oh, you're gonna love this one. I can tell you for the main character, B1, our little buddy right here. When Matthew first told me about the idea of, he said a robot and a cowboy, and I said, okay. I saw 3 images, because usually I've learned over the years, it's almost instantaneous with me, where it's like thoughts are just I get these rapid thoughts in my head, and I just immediately I go, okay, I got to draw it out. I saw 3 images in my head, in my mind. One was Clint Eastwood, clearly. It was Clint Eastwood, the man with no name. But then the second was Jet Jaguar. I love Jet Jaguar from the show era, and I said, that face. I said, I see Jet Jaguar. But then I said, I don't want to create or emulate or copy Jet Jaguar. And then the final one was Machine Man, Jack Kirby's Machine Man. Because I was like, there's a level of personality that goes with B1, excuse me. And so that's why I started working. I started working off the design. And then the final thing was I said, well, I got dreadlocks. I want to give him sort of like dreadlocks. I thought it'd be the coolest thing with a cowboy with a duster, and then his hair is kind of moving. Because the thing about it is that his dreadlocks, he's actually able to use them as, think of Medusa. So they actually move on their own. Kind of. That's the other little thing. Like I don't know if people will get it, but eventually they will. But they actually move on their own. So it's like it'd be kind of freaky to see these things kind of moving. Like if he's like standing there, they slowly are moving and stuff. Like you see a little movement and stuff. But he uses them to sort of, hardwire into other robots. He also can use them as a weapon too. So I mean, but I thought that adding the dreadlocks to it was a little touch on there, and then finally all those components came together, and I was able to create this one character, B1. From that.
I love that. How about the kaiju?
The kaiju are just, well, see, I know Matt's going to kill me. I'm going to loosely say that before Kaijus and Cowboys, me and Matt did, I think 2 short stories in an anthology book called It Came Out on a Wednesday, published by Alterna Comics. And in those stories, it was the books were called Team KS1. So it was Team KS-1. And the idea was that they were human beings with sort of exoskeleton suits, and they battled kaijus that were on Earth. And when I started designing those characters, I was like, okay, I looked at various different designs and stuff. And, I think that it's tough for people who, if we like kaijus, because we've been so influenced by Godzilla. I mean, as much as people feel like they haven't, we have, because we've seen so many Godzilla movies, King Kong, Gamera. But I broke open some of my dinosaur books and started looking at dinosaurs and stuff. And then I said, okay, I like some of those designs and just regular creatures. But then I wanted to give them a specific kind of design that would be their own. And I think people have started noticing it. It's in the eyes. Many of the kaijus in Kaijus and Cowboy, they tend to have 2 to 3 eyes inside their sockets. And so that was like something that I started off in Team KS1. And was sort of building off of that. One of the things that I liked that Matthew, I had to talk with Matthew, and I said, Matthew, another sort of manga anime that I love was Mazinger Z. And Mazinger Z, one of the things I admired about it was that Go Nage, I hope I say his name right. Everybody says so different. Go Naga.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Go Nage.
Okay. So one of the things I love was that how he utilized every character. Like every character had almost a presence to them. Even the bad characters, like the robots. Like he'll be like, this is Robot X9. Like he gave a name to this machine beast. I think that's what they called him, Iron Beast or Machine Beast. And then this Machine Beast or whatever would fight against Mazinger. And I was like, that is the coolest thing ever, because nothing's wasted. So in doing the Kaijus and Cowboys, Matthew just goes simple. Like when he sends me a script, he'll be like Rhino Kaiju, Ape Kaiju. He keeps it very simple, but then I build off of that. But it helps me because then I know that he's thinking of a certain kind of animal or something, and then I'm able to build off of that and use some of those attributes to build up my own version of the kaiju. So if he says flying bat kaiju, then I'll say, okay, cool, I can build something from that. So he's done a good job. One idea, and I'll probably shoot it with him later on, is that it'd be kind of cool to see if there's ever a character who goes around and actually starts giving names to these species. Just a thought. I don't know. We always think of crazy stuff, but I said that'd be kind of cool if there was someone to go around and just be like, so like a cryptozoologist or something, and just like, all right, kajuologist, and he's a robot, and he's like, okay, we're gonna start giving names to these creatures. But we're not there at this point. They're just pretty much, these creatures they're given a designation of what their species is.
How does Kaiju versus Cowboys differentiate from your past work together?
Ooh. We kind of had some
that's
in Secret Life. Well, in the Secret Lives of Villains, you kind of was hinting in there with stuff. I mean, we had the giant robots. I know that there was a giant mech in there in one of the stories.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
I think so. You were kind of hinting on it.
Yeah,
but it is different.
We have over like 400. We have like over 400 strips written. So like, there's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot in there. But like,
it was a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Kaiju Cowboys. Like, I wrote it because I knew of Frankie's love of kaiju and like giant monster stuff, and I wanted to make something that he would want to draw. Like, so like, I mean, I wouldn't say there's any real difference between, this and what we've done. Cause like, it's really, like, I don't know. I'm not a big believer in like the life of the artist is integral to the story. That gets into like really deep, like postmodern philosophy, but like, but like if we were to contextualize like Kaijus and Cowboys within the bounds of the relationship that Frankie and I have been building over the past couple of years, like, I mean, this is probably the most in sync we've been, if that makes any sense.
I agree.
Like,
I agree. Yes.
Like, yeah, it's like, I write what I think Frankie would like to draw, and like, Frankie takes that and like, turns out some absolutely amazing work and like sends it back to me, and like, like I'll make some changes to like the dialogue to make it fit the page, or like I'll modify it a little bit, but I don't really modify like my original script all that much from what Frankie does. So it's like, I
started doing notes with you. Like, this is how intense it is, where I'll literally write out, like, I don't know how many artists does this, but I'll do my thumbnails and they're pretty tight, but then I'll try to explain why I did what I did, as I'll send Matt this page of like my notes on each panel, on everything that's like, I've chilled, like from I noticed that when the first time I did it, I literally was breaking down like panel 1. So I was like, oh my God, that's a lot. So now it's like, I'll literally just write a little like small little synopsis of what my ideas are and whatever. It's just to give him an explanation, so he's not out trying to guess like, why did he do that, or why such and such and whatever. And so, and then he'll look at it, and then if he does have some kind of edit or something, they're pretty good. There's like stuff where you go like, oh, that's something I missed, and like, okay, cool, I can go back and make some edits.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. We are totally in sync with it. It's fantastic.
Gotcha. So, okay. Well, since you guys are so in sync, I'm curious to see if you have the same answer here or not.
All right. Uh-oh.
What?
Probably not.
Do you have a favorite character so far?
Oh, in the book?
Yeah.
Ooh. Oh, okay. So do we just blurt it out, or? Oh, we lost Matt.
Matt again.
All right. I guess for me, I'm gonna actually shoot for and the newest character that's popping up in there, because I think he was introduced in issue 1 is Doc. Mm-hmm. Doc was this character who Matthew, and I have some of the original drawings. When Matthew first mentioned, he said Frank, B-Win's gonna be with this guy who's going to be like a medical robot. And I said, oh, a medical robot. So when I first drew him, I drew him really big, massive, bulky, that kind of thing. And he's like, no, he's gonna be, he's just, whatever. And Matthew was saying sort of like a kid. He was pushing for a kid, but I was like, I don't see him as a kid. We went back and forth where I was like, and mind you, this is after I watched the Clone Wars. And I'll give some context. Now, I personally grew up with Star Trek. I wouldn't say I'm a Trekkie, but hey, I'll show respect where respect's due. I love Star Trek. I grew up with it. Now, my wife, Jess, she loves Star Wars. I love Star Wars as well too, but I never was like one of those people that's hardcore about Star Wars. I remember owning an R2D2 like little remote control robot just because he's a robot. I was in that phase where I love robots, and I thought R2D2 and C3PO were really cool. But I never really understood how cool R2D2 was until I was watching the Clone Wars. When I find like we were sitting down watching, I said, because for years because I was busy and whatever, and I said, okay, we're gonna sit down, and we watched it, and just seeing how capable R2D2 is, the gears in my head started spinning, and I said, okay, I came back and I started working on the doc idea. And now a movie I love was Tombstone with I'm gonna say
isn't Kurt Russell in that?
Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer.
Yes,
and
yes.
Val Kilmer played Doc Holliday. Oh, I love it. And immediately I thought of Doc Holliday. I said, okay. I said, here's the thing. I said, Matt, I see this character. I said, he cannot be a kid. And I remember we went back and forth because Val was like, oh, but kids are gonna read the book. I said, no, we don't need kids. we don't need kids to pitch the kids. I said, hold on for a second. I said, this character is like he's like a much older character. I'm gonna put like a sort of mustache design on him, but he's gonna be very capable, and he's gonna be he's gonna be more of a partner to be with. He's not gonna be like the little sidekick and he pats him on the head kind of thing. I said, I see this character like an R2D2. It may be a little bit of Fantastic Four Herbie, but I said overall he's going to be very capable. He's going to be the kind of character that I think people are going to connect with because he's almost like the heart of this thing that they have. And I said, let me just draw him out and I'll and then you can see it and then we'll go from there. And I did. I drew the character out. And he's like, I dig it, Frank. And so we got Doc.
So yeah, it turns out we're not all that in sync. Because my personal favorite character is Bwin, the bot with no name.
Yeah. There you go.
And like there's admittedly, this is not Frank. This is my fault because the way I have it planned is that there are revelations in store that are coming in like the later issues. And like, yes, Doc is capable and he doesn't throw down, but he's integral. He is very integral to the plot. But there are bits of character development with the bot with no name that I kind of like.
So I feel like we might want to start wrapping things up here.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah,
with Matt's technical difficulties. So I just have a few more questions.
Sure. All right.
And I could probably loop them into a bit less than just a few.
Sure.
So where can people find the work for Kaiju and Cowboys? Where can they find that stuff?
Well, at this time, we actually, the only place that we do have is our Twitter account, and it's Kaijus and Cowboys on Twitter. We have talked about it, and I think that's one of the things about it is that we've talked about the idea of getting a website, but then we're looking at cost and stuff like that. One idea that we're really thinking strongly about is possibly getting on the platform Global Comics and have an avenue in there. So definitely we're going to make a decision before the end of this year. Mm-hmm. And I can safely say that. So we definitely are going to find some form of platform where people can go and actually be able to get the books and the content.
Okay. And have you had any so besides what you just said, is there any other challenges you've had with distribution and like just getting the word out?
I've been pretty good. The thing about me is that I years of working in advertising, I'm a huge fan of guerrilla marketing. I mean, just to give it, and I'm gonna be very, very, very quick with it. But originally, I did a comic book with it wasn't. It was a graphic novel with a friend of mine named James Biggie, and we did Robot God Akamatsu, and that was back in 2012, and we came out like gangbuster. I mean, we were doing interviews like across the sea. Everybody loved it. It was a homage to, again, the Shogun Warriors, super robots. We came out at a great time. The only problem was that when me and James both worked in advertising. He was a graphic artist, art director, and I think that we didn't have the passion. We did have passion, but we didn't have what we like what me and Matthew had, where at the time too, I still had a foot in advertising. So when I did the comic book, when we did the graphic novel, it was more like we were just having fun with it. And then finally, when we put it out there, people really showed a lot of interest. And then a publisher picked us up. And then we were like, oh, wow. So it happened really quick. It was very rapid. And the thing was that we just didn't have the mindset to maintain or to continue it. And unfortunately, when people wanted more, we weren't able to produce more. And I think that's something that I learned from that process of Robot God Akamatsu, of how like we didn't have a production schedule. We didn't even plan. We did the graphic novel, and it was just like people were like, well, what else is going to happen? And when James had wrote it, it was left open. And so, it took me like maybe 2 years to do the artwork, I think, off and on for that book. And it was just like, whoa, so you guys are going to wait another 2 years, that kind of thing. So it was definitely a learning lesson. So I don't know. I think now I think that for me, I learned from doing Robot God Akamatsu about preemptive guerrilla marketing, and that means that say 6, maybe even 7 to 8 months ahead, I'm already talking about Kaijus and Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell anybody that you should be talking about what your comic book is or your product like months and months in advance, just so that it's sitting in the psyche of people. That's what guerrilla marketing is about. It's about going out there and you paint an image like Andre the Giant, the picture of Andre the Giant on a wall or on a little poster. I remember seeing those. They were amazing. That marketing campaign, whoever did that. And they did these stickers of Andre the Giant, and then they plastered it all over the place in Boston, Cambridge, all over. And people were like, who's doing this? And it was this amazing marketing stunt because it got the attention of people. And that's kind of like what I do. I just go out there and I just post. And I post other stuff too. But I really focus on getting that information out as early as possible so that when the time comes for the crowdfunding, then we have the results that we're having even now.
Right. Okay. So speaking of crowdfunding, where can people support this amazing idea?
Oh, we're currently on Kickstarter right now. We're day 1.5. Yeah, we just started yesterday. We started yesterday, so we're not even barely into 2 days. And the campaign is going pretty strong. So we're on Kickstarter right now, Kaijus and Cowboys.
Okay. And so I just have a few things left here. I keep
Sure,
saying
not
that.
a problem. Not a problem.
So my first one, and this was from my co-host Rex. He was really curious about this question. If Kaiju and Cowboys continues to be successful, is there any possibility of something outside of a comic book?
Oh man, I mean, it's nice, as someone who's worked in animation as well as film. Yeah, I mean, it's nice. I think the thing about it, though, that most people need to know that once you enter into those arenas of, say, animation and dealing with studios and as film too, that's a situation where you really don't have any power, and you got to be okay with that. And so it would be one of those things where, like, if somebody came along and they said, "Well, all right, we're going to offer you some money and hopefully a nice chunk of change," most likely me and Matthew would say probably yes, and say, "Go ahead, you do your thing." But then we would control still doing the comic books. We would be satisfied in the fact of doing the comic books and using whatever publicity we can from whatever's being made, be it live action or animated, as a way to help keep the brand growing from there. But it's the understanding that that again we have an infant, what I call the infant IP. So studios, if anything, if they were to try to license it from us, or option it, excuse me, they would just give us a certain amount of money and be like, they may shelve it, hold it for a little bit, and then whatever. So yeah, it would be nice. I wouldn't say it's bad. It would be nice. I actually would love to see it more. You ever see that show Love, Rocket, and Love, or what is it called?
Love
Rockets
Robots.
and Death. Right? Is that it on Netflix?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
I love how they do the different stuff on there. Animation wise, God, CG would be nice if it was CGI'd, and or if it was what's his name? Who did Primal? I love that style.
Oh,
I can't never say his name. Krasinski.
Tartakovsky or something.
Yeah, he did Symbiotic Titan, and that style. I love that style. So it'd be kind of cool to see if Kaiju Cowboys could be in that kind of style or something. But that'd be nice. Yeah.
And then, so I got two things left. Do you have any advice for young creators that are wanting to create their own content?
It's a balance between being obsessed and knowing when to give up and try something else. Because I'm speaking as someone who is, who thinks of himself as a creative person, but also as someone who did not, who was not born into creative industries and who did not live the life of a creative person for a very long time. I have my entire life has been marked by trying to get things off the ground and failing. Partially out of bad luck, but mostly because I didn't, want it. Partially because I didn't, I had bad luck, but also because I didn't want to, keep going. I gave up. But at the same time, you have to recognize when, something's not working. You have to be it's okay, let it go.
Well, I guess, my take on it would be, I've always believed, take chances. Don't be afraid. I think many times I'm seeing way too many creators overthink the process. My first creator-owned comic book was Peace. It was a book that I did called Peace on newsprint. I still have some copies. And it was back in 1991. And I took a chance. I took a gamble. And I think the thing about it is that you got to be a risk taker, you can't be afraid. It's the thing about art. I think that if you're trying to compare your artwork or your book to other books out there that have been around, or people that have been around, like me, 30 plus years or whatever, or even in the comic book industry, then yeah, you're gonna give yourself a headache that you don't need. Stop comparing yourself. Believe in yourself. Just do it. People have to understand that to me, the true essence of comic books is really underground and indie. The mainstream exists, yes, but I love the underground comic books. I love that. What was the other one? Outlaw comic books. I love the stuff that has some grit to it. Zines. I still have zines where people just literally hand lettered balloons, the words are so tiny you can't even read. You're struggling to read it. But they did their comics. It's almost like when you see the people do the 24-hour comics, and they just they bang them out and stuff. It's just you gotta do it. Don't overthink it. Just do it. And put it out. Put it, if you have to fold the paper and whatever. Get that out of your system, and then so it's actually brought into the real world so you can look at it. That's the first step, the first of many steps. So there you go. Just you got to be out there. Don't be afraid.
I love that. Okay, so to wrap things up here,
all right.
Is there anything else you'd like to add? If not, go ahead and shameless self-promotion. Go for it.
Oh man, I think I've already said so much. I guess for me, I'm just gonna say I am. But I don't have the copy yet for issue 2, but these are the first. We already got 2 issues. This one was the very first one that came out. It was a teaser, like a teaser trailer. It came out in 2021. We only offered it on that first Kickstarter campaign, and no more have been issued out. And then this is the one that we brought out last year. That's issue 1. So this is the one that starts everything. And then the campaign that we have now on Kickstarter has this one, as well as issue 2. So for the folks who might have missed last year, they get a chance to get this. I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that there are people who are enjoying what me and Matt are doing. I'm honored by it. I'm humbled. I don't just say that just to say it. It is a very humbling thing, because there's a part of me where I sit there and I go, there's thousands of artists out there. There's thousands of writers out there. You don't have to look at my work. You choose to. And that's a very powerful thing. I don't take it lightly. And I'm very grateful that anyone comes by and takes the time to check out what I got and to comment and share their thoughts and their dreams and pick up the stuff from me, whatever. I'm very, very honored by that, and I just want you to know that I think that it's okay for people to be humbled by stuff. I've never been a person who walked around with a sense of bravado about what I did, and when I talk about my career and the things that I did, I'm very honored that I did them. Sometimes I have to pinch myself because I can't believe I was in these various situations and got to meet so many incredible people. But I'm always been a person who's very, very close to earth, and that's something that I think I'm always going to be. I never want to be a kind of person where I can't, I see myself somehow above other people. I'm not like that. I love talking to different people. I love sharing. I love learning. So I guess that's the only thing. I can only give you the truth, and I like to keep it real. So anyway, if you want to join the ride and come along and ride with us, become another writer on the Kaijus and Cowboys Kickstarter campaign.
This whole experience has been amazing. It's been wonderful. It's been an absolute treat that I wouldn't that I wouldn't exchange for anything else in the world. I've been in, like Frankie's had his own journey. I've embarked on my own personal artistic and creative journey that I never thought I would do, and I never thought I would be here, doing this, talking to amazing people and making some amazing stuff and getting to see all this amazing artwork. And I know it sounds cliche, but if I can do it, you can do it. And thank you so much for getting involved. Thank you so much for checking us out. Thank you so much for helping us get to a point where we can do this professionally, and let's work towards making work we can make.
And with that, we have concluded the interview with Frankie B. Washington and Matthew Blair. A huge thanks to them for reaching out, asking if we could interview them, and giving us the opportunity to interview them. So please go check out all of their work. I will leave a link in the show notes below to check out their Kickstarter. And with that, we're going to wrap things up here with the typical podcast sign-off by myself. Hi, my name's Elijah. If you want to find me, you can find me on YouTube at ET13 Productions, on Instagram at ET13 Productions, or on Twitter at ET13 Productions. If you want to find my personal socials, it's not difficult, but I'm not going to link them here. As for Rex, find him on YouTube at RexXeno, on Twitter at Rex_Xenomorph, or on Instagram at Rex_Xeno. And with that, we're going to wrap things up here. As always, don't forget to rate us on iTunes. That boosts our ratings and helps us get recommended to more people just like you. If you don't have an Apple device, which I don't blame you, I don't. That's a lie, actually. I use a MacBook to do this podcast. You can rate us on Spotify. If you want to stay up to date with all things Kaiju Conversation related, follow us on Twitter at KAIJU_CONVERS. If you don't have Twitter, you can follow us on Instagram or like us on Facebook. If you're like me before podcasting and you don't have any social media, lucky you, you can email us at kaijuconversation@gmail.com, all lowercase, all one word, you know the drill. And as always, we'll read your reviews on air for everyone to hear. We also have a Teespring store. Eventually we'll have original artwork on there, but until then you can sport our awesome logo on a t-shirt or maybe even a coffee mug. If you'd like to chat with us, check out our Discord server full of others that have similar interests to you. It's a great community full of great people. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you can be notified anytime we upload a video. We sometimes post exclusives to the channel like bloopers for episodes or mini-sodes talking about news or other subjects. We also have an interview with Mechagodzilla designer George Kirchevsky on the channel. I definitely butchered his name. I apologize. And a huge thanks to Rex for editing all of these episodes, except for this one I did most of the editing. So I'm going to give myself a little pat on the back for that one. And all the other content we upload, his links can be found in the show notes below. Along with Rex, we'd like to give a huge thanks and shout out to Danny DeManna of the Godzilla Novelization Project for his amazing vocals on our theme song. You can support him by following him on Twitter at Danzilla93_GNP or visit his website, GodzillaNovelizationProject.com. And a huge thanks to Grattan Conwell from the podcast Giant Monster BS for composing the music for our theme song. You can support him by following the podcast on Twitter at Giant Monster BS or on any podcast platform under the name Giant Monster BS. And with that, we're going to wrap things up here, so thank you guys so much for listening, and as always, please remember, life's too short to not talk big. Bye, guys!
We are set, we are in debt, there's nothing to sweat. Life's too short now, baby. And not too big now, baby. Conversation. His name's Elijah, baby. And also Rex now.